Welcome back to Classic Reimagined, the podcast where we dive deep into classic literature and its modern adaptations. I'm your host, Lena.
I'm your host, Margaret.
I'm your host, Blair.
And I'm your host, Hannah.
And today we'll be exploring William Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew and its modern retelling in the 1999 film 10 Things I Hate About You. We'll be comparing and contrasting these two works, examining the themes, characters, and how the transformation from a 16th century play to a 20th century teen movie brings new perspectives to Shakespeare's story. So let's get started.
The Taming of the Shrew is one of Shakespeare's most popular comedies. It's believed to have been written between 1590 and 1592. And a little overview about the story. It revolves around the courtship of Petruchio and Catherine, the Shrew of the title. Catherine is known for her sharp tongue and fiery temper, making her less desirable match compared to her mild-mannered sister, Bianca. Petruchio undertakes the challenge of taming Catherine using psychological and physical tactics to subdue her will.
Alright, now let's fast forward to 1999, when the film 10 Things I Hate About You hit the theaters. The teen romantic comedy, directed by Gail Junger, takes the core elements of Shakespeare's play and transposes them into a more modern American high school setting. In this version, Katerina, or Kat, is a strong-willed and outspoken feminist, while Petruchio is reimagined as Patrick, a mysterious bad boy hired to date Kat so that her younger sister, Bianca, can also start dating.
Both works explore themes of identity, social expectations, and relationships. However, the way these themes are handled differs significantly due to the context and time period. Let's dive deeper into these differences.
Alright guys, I have a question for you. What do we think about the controversial themes of gender roles in The Taming of the Shrew?
Well, the first thing that I noticed is that Petruchio's actions are seen as like the reflective expectations of that are placed on men to assert dominance over women. Like his entire attempt to tame her and kind of use it as like a challenge to be made was definitely like seen as a way of him trying to assert his dominance like as a male figure in society, especially in the 1590s when it was set.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like his like taming that he does towards Kate is almost seen as like a victory.
Yeah, and there's a lot of arguments to whether Kate was actually tamed at the end of the play, and it can be interpreted as both genuine or ironic. And there's a lot of argument I found over it. And if you interpret it as genuine, then Kate is officially tamed, and kind of that like societal expectation that women have to be like tamed under men or like less dominant, like then it's like fulfilled.
And also like going with the fact that like at the time women like needed to marry in order to like live their lives effectively because like they depended on men, so like she kind of needed to like be tamed, otherwise she couldn't like continue in society.
Yeah, because if you do take, some people have taken the speech at the end to be ironic, but it's in like she was kind of lying to make it seem like she was tamed so that she could like still be married to Petruchio and like what you said, like have all the like benefits to being married because she can't really live on her own, but she wasn't actually like tamed to her soul.
Yeah. And like 10 Things I Hate About You, I think it was genuine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there are also like less like societal pressures to like for Kat in that movie because like
different time period for sure.
Exactly.
And also like Pat in the movie obviously wasn't like physically abusing Kat in the same way that Petruchio was in the play. Like he was just kind of getting paid to take her out, which I think is different than like starving her so that she's so hungry that like she can't eat.
Ties to like what was deemed as like comedy
Mm-hmm.
back in the day. Like it used to be like, oh, a man is abusing this woman, that's comedy. It's not comedy now.
Yeah. Because the approach can be like used to entertain the audience, but it also like highlights the absurdity of the traditional gender roles and like the power dynamics that were depicted in the play, because you can obviously see like how like even though it was like what you said it was a comedy, you can still see how he's trying to like assert his dominance over Catherine.
Yeah, an example of that, when Shrew came to the wedding in like his obscene clothes, and when he like denied Kate food, like he found that as like comedy, but like Lena said, now that's like not comedy at all.
I think going back to like how you're talking about like the characters, like also in 10 Things I Hate About You, like Kat is kind of like a stronger like woman character too. Like I feel like she's like seen as being able to like do more herself. Like she doesn't want to have that like man like over her, which I feel like is kind of like it differs so much from the time period that was like Taming of the Shrew, when it was like that's what needed to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kat's a lot more independent.
Yeah,
and just
exactly.
more strong-willed, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I feel like she was more of like a feminist, but like Catherine in Taming the Shrew was more just like a shrew. Like they were just like they were both
Treating
shrews.
her like an animal.
Yeah.
Like a shrew.
Mm-hmm.
A little mouse.
Yeah.
I feel like both of the characters, Bianca and Kate, have like very strong personalities almost, and Kate's assertiveness is like more seen as like aggressive, but Bianca's more able to like manipulate the situations that she's presented in, particularly like her interactions with the men.
Yeah. And Bianca was like much more desired, and I feel like she like wanted her sister to get married, not so that her sister would be like happy or whatever, but so that she could get married, which also kind of what was happened in 10 Things I Hate About You in the movie, where she like wanted to help her sister go out so that she could go out, kind of like for her own desires, not necessarily for like out of love.
Yeah.
Do you think that Bianca's like more shallow than, or like less shallow than she's depicted, or do you think that she's like exactly like just like wants to be popular, like wants to?
I feel like which movie? Just
like overall?
Just in general, and either.
In 10 Things I Hate About You, I feel like her character development was really good. Like towards the end, she obviously realized how kind of horrible of a person she was too. Cameron.
Yeah, and I also feel like Bianca, like in Taming the Shrew, she kind of like didn't have any character growth. She just kind of got married, and then at the end she wasn't even like as happy as Catherine was with her marriage. So I feel like in 10 Things I Hate About You, she definitely had like more of a story arc, and like her character definitely changed, but I feel like in the play she didn't really change at all. Or she did change, but it wasn't necessarily for the better.
Yeah.
In that sense.
I think also like Bianca, at least in 10 Things I Hate About You, she like decided, she was like, oh, she didn't like Joey because like he like was so like boring. She was like, I don't want to be with him. She kind of realized that like Cameron was a better fit for her. Like I think that's another like it shows her character development. Like
she didn't go after
him
because he was popular.
And I feel like in 10 Things I Hate About You though, you can see like she still like is like retains like her sort of shallowness, especially in the beginning. Like she only cares about being popular, kind of.
And her Prada backpack.
See, there's a difference between like and love. Because I like my Skechers, but I love my Prada backpack.
But I love my Skechers.
That's because you don't have a Prada backpack.
Oh.
I feel like the social hierarchy like at the high school kind of represents the social hierarchy in Taming of the Shrew. Like
different time period, but same thing, I guess.
Yeah. Because characters like Bianca and her friends occupy like the upper levels of like the school hierarchy, but Kat and Patrick, like they're both kind of at the bottom because everyone's scared of Patrick, and everyone thinks that Kat is just a shrew, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of with that, like, how do you think stereotypes are like playing a role in the development of like the characters, or like how the movie or play? Mostly the movie, I think, more stereotypes in, but
characters like Joey are like more the stereotypical like popular kids.
The bad boys.
The bad boys.
Like Pat.
And they hold like more power in the hierarchy that you're talking about. But Kat is kind of almost like a social outcast, kind of. She kind of like rebels against society and does her own thing, and these stereotypes influence the way that the characters interact with the people and how they perceive each other, which creates almost like tension, but I feel like it also like drives the plot well.
And I feel like Petruchio or like Patrick, because they're kind of the same character, just different eras.
Yeah.
Petruchio, he's like the archetypical like suitor who seeks to marry for wealth and social status, just like Patrick wanted to go out with Kat just to get money. And then but then we can see that Patrick like initially is a rebellious outsider, but then he like reveals his sensitive side when he genuinely falls in love with Kat. And I feel like in the movie he was a lot more genuine about Kat than in the play, because I feel like in the play it was never really like it didn't seem like genuine love, which probably was because it was a completely different time period. So I like reading it now, it's weird to see, but I feel like the movie was just easier to like see the character transformation.
And I think like also he kind of has to like be the bad boy, like, or like seem like the bad boy at first, because otherwise like Catherine can't like him right away. Otherwise that's like yeah. And like also I think she has to like at first think that he's like unintelligent or like not like worthy of like her time or whatever, and then like once you like actually get to know him, then you see like the character development from like her too.
This little enemies to lovers.
Yes. Wonderful trope.
Yeah. And then also like you can see in Kat's sonnet at the end of the movie, I feel like that was like the tipping point of her transformation.
Especially when she starts crying.
Yeah.
Really
Apparently
tell.
that was unscripted.
Yeah, I
saw
read
that.
too that she's
Yeah.
unscripted. And I feel like it also shows like just how you said it, like Patrick had like the other side of him that she didn't see. Like it also shows her other side, because she comes off as like a really strong-headed like character who won't get hurt, and then you can, when she's crying like at her speech, she like actually
breaks down.
Yeah.
She shows like her vulnerable side that she was like scared to show before. So back to Kat's sonnet, do we think hers, like I know it's like controversial of if Catherine's in Taming of the Shrew was genuine or more of like sarcastic, but do you think that that differs with Kat's in 10 Things I Hate About You? Like, do you think hers is more like genuine?
I think obviously in 10 Things I Hate About You, she's more genuine.
Yeah.
Like, you can like just like see it pretty well.
Like I feel like in the play, like a lot of people interpret Catherine's thing as all like speech at the end as also genuine, but I feel like Kat's in 10 Things I Hate About You just felt more genuine, because when I read like Catherine's at the end of the play, it like almost, it just didn't feel genuine, which also is like different language at the time, and it's
hard
like
to know what the tone is.
Yeah, what the tone
tell
is.
how they're saying it.
Yeah, and then like seeing her in the movie, like you can see like her act and obviously her crying, it just like she seemed a lot more genuine.
I agree.
Like I feel like there was no like argument about whether or not it would be ironic or not, or sarcastic. I think it was just like genuine.
And also the fact that she like gets back with Patrick, like kind of shows that that's what she wanted.
But also another difference in the movies, because she like kind of ended it with Patrick because she found out about the money, but in Taming it never really was brought into the open that he married her for her wealth, which I think it was obvious, and she probably knew that there was no other reason at the beginning. But I feel like that was more directly addressed in the movie.
I agree.
Like going back to like the society, or like not the societal, the like different time periods, and like how like that affected, like I feel like you can marry more for love in like this time period versus like for money kind of thing.
Moving on, how do you guys think humor and tone differ between 10 Things I Hate About You and The Taming of the Shrew? Like what kinds of humor are employed in each?
Like I think the biggest piece of humor that in Taming of the Shrew is like Patrick's actual, or Petruchio's taming of Catherine, and also like the little things that he would do, like he would have like a lot of like quick like wit that would be kind of hard to understand, like just because it's different like language and the time period, like that comedy was so different. But also, I think the most obvious was him showing up to his wedding late, dressed in like a flamboyant, crazy, obnoxious outfit.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it. The humor like really depends on like the time period more. In like 10 Things I Hate About You, it's obviously based in a high school, so there's more like sarcastic dialogue, more like conversations between teens, situational comedy. That kind of reflects like the setting rather than like the setting in Taming.
That one, is that the principal? It's like
Oh my gosh,
yes.
Book.
Yes.
She's like, what's another word for like member?
Yeah, I feel like that part is kind of like the same comedy aspect. Like in Taming the Shrew, they use a ton of like crude, kind of vulgar like comments, which is like translated to the principal when she's writing her smut. So I feel like that kind of translates almost like perfectly.
Undulating with desire, Adrian removes her red. Crimson cape at the sight of Reginald's stiff and Judith! What's another word for engorged?
I'll look it up.
Okay.
And then, I was gonna say also, like, we talked about like how a lot of the humor was like the taming or like kind of like the abusive behavior of like hitting people or like whatever. And I feel like that could also be like a parallel could be drawn with like when Kat hits Joey's car.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh,
that was good.
Yeah.
Ugh, what is it, asshole day? Do you mind?
Not at all.
You bitch!
Completely.
The dad's like, insurance doesn't cover PMS.
Yeah, and I like how when her dad was like, "Did you make anyone cry today?" and she was like, "Not yet."
Oh yeah.
Like I feel like that scene kind of also is kind of the taming humor, except like Kat's the one doing the aggressive behavior instead of like the receiving end of it.
Yeah, I agree.
So I feel like Patrick never really like.
He never actually did anything like terrible besides the bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that kind of shows too, like her challenging the gender roles that we were talking about.
Yeah.
She's not like a little goody two shoes being like, oh sorry, like
Yeah.
she's more of like a strong-willed character.
Yeah. I think that's a lot different in the play and the movie, because I feel like in the play, even though she was like super fiery, she still didn't have like any power or ability to basically do anything about it. Like she could be as much of a pest as she wanted, but at the end she would have to marry and she would have to submit, and I feel like she probably knew that. Like no matter how long she avoided it, her dad would marry her off. So what do you guys think are like the main themes besides like the gender roles that are seen in Taming of the Shrew?
Obviously, I think love is a central theme in both the Taming of the Shrew and 10 Things I Hate About You. I mean, the romantic relationships really drive the plot in both of the works, and I think just like the development of all the characters wouldn't be possible without the love aspect. And I feel like that's in like a lot of stories. You see love is like a main thing that helps with development.
Like also even in 10 Things I Hate About You, I forget his name, but who was the dude that was Cameron's tour guide? Like at the beginning.
He even got his
like he got his love at the end. Like everyone kind of like found their person, and also I feel like through love, like the characters like complexities like kind of discovered. Like you wouldn't like Kat wouldn't have changed had it not been for Patrick, and Bianca wouldn't have changed had it not been for Cameron. So I feel like love kind of like drove the character development in the story.
Yeah.
And like I don't know if it's as much of like a theme or just like a takeaway, but also like kind of like don't judge people by their like what
Yeah.
their first
Yeah.
your first interaction with them or like what you think that they are.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think that also like
Don't
helps.
judge the book by its cover.
Yeah.
But there's always like second chances.
Yeah.
In 10 Things I Hate About You.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like going off what you said, don't judge a book by its cover. I feel like it's also in Taming of the Shrew, like the play, a lot too. Like in the beginning, Bianca kind of seemed like she'd be the perfect wife, and like every single suitor wanted her. But then at the end of the play, when her husband like called her, she didn't come, but only Kat came. And then Catherine went to her husband when she was called. Which I feel like in the beginning, everyone would think that Catherine would be. Stop it. Catherine would be the worst wife to have than Bianca, and she wouldn't be obedient. But at the end, Bianca was the one who was disobedient to her husband.
Some concluding thoughts. What did we all like the movie? Which one did we like better?
I mean, I just like 10 Things I Hate About You more just because like it's modern. I feel like it's more relatable and like language is easier to understand.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think both are like have good stories.
I agree. It was really cool, like reading the play, and then like, or I've watched 10 Things I Hate About You like long ago, but then reading the play, then I kind of saw like the parallel, and I was like, wait, that's actually cool that like Shakespeare can be now adapted into modern times.
Yeah, because I watched the movie like 50 times before realizing that Taming of the Shrew is like
it's like
based
the
on the
exact
story.
same.
Yeah. So I mean, I definitely like 10 Things I Hate About You more, just like what you guys said. But I think both. It's just like seeing it in a different time period is cool too.
It's really cool. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, that's all for today's episode of Classic Reimagined. I hope you guys enjoyed our exploration of the Taming of the Shrew and